Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Who For podcast. It's been a long time since we've had a show that's come out, and I have been waiting. I've been waiting for something to talk about that is meaningful to me and that I feel like would make a big impact in a small amount of time. So this is why we're here, I think. I feel urgency here, Lloyd. So anyways, This is Lloyd Sloan. I want you to tell me, and so we'll just start with a question now. I want you to tell me who you are, why you're here, and why you're so passionate about what we're talking about and the current time that we're in. So I would love for you to set your own stage here.
I'm Lloyd Sloan. I'm from St. Louis. Politically, I call myself upper left. And so I'll just start with that and we get right into it that way. And that's a term that I started working on a book about 10 years ago. I had left a pretty good day job and retired younger than perhaps I look. and thought I'd be further along on that book. And I realized it was on the Constitution. And I knew the Constitution was broken, frankly, since I was in high school. We're not following it, people, but good luck getting back on it as far as what the founders intended. And I knew we had to fix the politics first before we even fix the Constitution. So I started realizing the left-right political model is broken and came up with a new idea, which I call the Equality Freedom Political Map, or EF map these days. And I end up upper left. I just commissioned a survey from TIPP. They're a pretty well-known pollster. They're one of the few pollsters that got the 2016 election right. They were working with Investors Business Daily at that time, and no longer. In any case, 67% of independent voters are upper left. And so I'm definitely here to talk about that, and I am passionate about that. America has been drifting in the wrong direction for almost a century. Okay, we keep getting worse and worse inequality and bigger government. We keep fighting as if we have to trade off between those two, and the fascists are winning. That's to cut to the chase. Now, I don't know if that tells you much about me. I co-founded an organization in Missouri called No More Sales Tax. So politically, we call for the abolition of sales taxes, a very upper left idea, incidentally, given that sales taxes are regressive. I ran the Ron Paul. I was the second congressional district coordinator for the 2012 Ron Paul campaign. So I do come from a more Republican background. I was raised by Goldwater Republicans. For the young people out there, those are the hardcores, okay? Because Goldwater got creamed in 1964, big time. And if you're raised by Goldwater Republicans, yeah, those are the true blues, okay?
Lloyd, can you talk more about that? I would love for you to describe what that was like growing up. So you grew up in Missouri?
No, my father was in the Air Force. I was born in Florida. Okay. I have lived all over the country. I was educated my father retired out of Scott Air Force Base, which is across the river from St. Louis in Illinois. I've lived in Texas and Arkansas, relatives all over the country. We traveled a lot, went on vacations a lot, and I love America. I'd rather travel America than travel outside it, to be honest. I have not yet been to Minnesota, incidentally. So that is on the bucket list. It is the only state now that I have not visited. So
really?
I am definitely, I've done the other, of the lower 48. I've not been to Alaska, I've not been to Hawaii. So I would like to see both of them. Yeah, it is. And Lake Itasca.
What are the top 3 things that your parents taught you about politics and about how to live and about humanity and society?
Oh my goodness. I didn't all take at the time, but they taught me to be decent. They tried to teach me to work hard. They did try, but that didn't always take either. But my parents were good, middle class. I had a Leave It to Beaver upbringing, if that means anything to people now. But that was a TV show from 1957 to 60 something, and with Wally and the Beaver and Ward and June Cleaver. It was very middle class. Those are the values that I grew up with. My father was a My parents met in a church. Okay, so they met attending church and stuff. They were very good churchgoers. My mom was. You're gonna make me tear up if I tell this now, but well, my mom recently passed away 2 years ago. But you can still. It has more impact on you than you might think, and it's the one person in
Of
your
course.
life that you literally can say has known you your entire life from the
Yeah.
very beginning. Okay, so that leaves a dent, period, and it's very powerful. I see all the family, and I'm a victim of divorce too. And you see this, and you realize that the breakup of the family is a concern for me. It doesn't necessarily fit this upper left stuff. We can get into it, but it
No,
should
I
be a
think it's
concern.
very relevant. I think it's very relevant. I'm also a child of a divorced family, and it's definitely played into my perspective and seeing how the connection is so important and relationships are so important. Sorry, continue.
Oh no, that's fine. No, I appreciate that because we act as though that doesn't matter. That somehow 3/4 of children are 70% of black children born out of wedlock, and that doesn't matter. It
Kind of the
matters.
only thing that
It
matters
matters.
is we are born and there's a couple mindsets that are kind of proposed that you should do. Some people say that you should grow up and get a job and make money and then have a family and then become a consumer. And other people would just say, no, you're here to love and experience and make connections because that you're alive. You only have a certain amount of time left in your life. Are you going to be exploiting others for your profit, or are you going to be investing your time and energy into others and building them up and building strong communities that you love? Find people that you love. Anyways.
No, I think it's, I mean, that's straight out of the New Testament. That's Paul saying there is faith, hope, charity, but the greatest of these is love. And what is he talking about? He's not talking about Madonna in videos and stuff like. He's not talking about sex. He's not talking about. He's talking about loving God. When Jesus was asked, "What is the greatest commandment?" He said, "To love God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind." And from this it follows the second greatest: to love your neighbor as yourself. That is the most brilliant synopsis of the Old and New Testaments I've ever heard. So, and I'm not that, I sound like I'm a Bible thumper. I'm not, okay? I didn't read the Bible all the way through till I was 40. I can tell we, it shouldn't be about me, all right? It really shouldn't be about
So,
me.
no, I would love to
But
I would love to jump in on that. So, the Bible is a spiritual document, and I have done a lot of spiritual searching in the last couple of years and just really exploring into all kinds of different ideologies, spiritual practices. I'm fascinated with cults. We can get into that later, but I think that
the snake holding,
all of the spiritual ideologies at their essence, I mean, unless they're evil, there's some that are evil. They're totally evil. But the ones for the light or whatever, they believe that you should love everything because you should love your experience. And when something bad happens to you, you can either be really upset about that and dwell on it and blame others, blame yourself, get depressed, or you can say, that was a lesson that I just learned. I'm appreciative of that lesson. I'm going to integrate that with my life moving forward. And even if I did something that I don't like, or even if I did something that I'm ashamed of, I can now take this data and move forward and build something better. It's like alchemy, right? You take something and you turn it into something else. You turn pain, you turn guilt, you turn shame and to love and to something good and to literally giving to others. The training the soul and practicing your soul
sure.
is just as important as practicing your mind or your body, and I think that's something that has been kind of missing. We're talking we opened it with the upper left, and right now our current reality is two options. We've got right and left. We've got government is too big or equality is too small, and we're providing a way forward. And I just think,
We're technically coming to a compromise. We want both. We want both.
yeah,
Somebody says, "Do you
yeah,
want
and
equality or do you want freedom?" Well, not to be greedy, but I want both. Okay. So why do I have to pick
that's
between
right.
those two? Because the fascists tell
And
us we have to. That's why. So they can run the show.
well,
That's
and you
my.
say the fascists. You say the
Yeah.
fascists, but they really are economists, they're think tanks, they're lobbyists, and especially the politicians that are reinforcing and continuously establishing the system over and over and over again. You know,
When I say fascist,
these are official voices.
the,
Our school system teaches us about economics. It teaches us about supply and demand, and it teaches us that this is the way that it is, and this is how it always will be. And it's so interesting how they frame it. If you zoom out 250 years before that, we didn't live like this at all.
when
Absolutely.
the government owns the means of production, that is more a Marxist and socialist model. So the military, which we don't think of as socialist, but it technically is socialist, it's owned by the government. The British healthcare system is a socialist system. Government owns the hospitals. The doctors work for the government. Post office is an example. Those are government employees. Obamacare is not socialist. It is fascist. It uses the existing private hospitals to deliver the product. Government pays for it. So it's like a transfer payment. But what Mussolini called fascism, which comes from is an Italian word, obviously, goes back into Latin, and it means group or bundle. And so the symbol of the fascists was a bundle of sticks that you tie together, and that makes them stronger because fascists tend to be very collectivist, they're big government people, but they also are very happy with wealth inequality. They tend to have the business people running. So our system is really more fascist than it is socialist. Republicans don't know this stuff, so they accuse everybody who's a Democrat of being a socialist. Nah, you're giving Hillary and Biden too much credit. They ain't even remotely.
So I would love to describe fascism in a different
Yeah.
way and the way that I would like to describe it. So
Okay.
in my mind, fascism is something that is a structure that allows the flow of something one way only, and it does not allow the flow of things any other way. And if you try to go a different way, it will kick you out and it will punish you, and you're kind of left to die unless you jump back into the stream. And that's kind of abstract, but and I kind of I experimented with this 2 years ago. I tried to kind of get out of capitalism. I sold my house, I bought a trailer, I tried to travel and just be out. And I experienced what that was like. However, if anything goes wrong at any time, if you don't have a pile of money somewhere, you're so screwed. In every you are 3 days, if you do not have a support system or if you do not have a pot of gold somewhere, you are 3 days away from homelessness if something really bad happens, if you don't have your own house, right? If you're a renter and you got behind on your rent and you also got the utilities, depending on which state on you're in. So for example, in Minnesota, it's really, really hard to evict someone. They've made it very difficult for landlords to evict tenants, but in the negotiation is then that landlords then have very high standards for the renters, which is kind of working and it's kind of not. And they're having to have more diversity in the housing for more options. Anyways, the point is Minnesota is doing a lot of things to try to create more streams for more people because people are everywhere and you have to meet them where they are. If you don't meet them where they are, you're forcing them to go somewhere else. And that is what fascism is. It's
That would
control.
also
It's
describe Bolshevism and communism, and also the French Revolution against Louis XVI. I mean, that's
100%.
authoritarianism. That's
It's setting a
authoritarianism.
goal ahead of time and then saying, people, we're going to that goal whether you like it or not, and we will force you to do that. And if we can't force you, which it's difficult to force people to do things unless you like really have like hard slavery or hard mass incarceration, which we're kind of getting to at this point, hard mass incarceration with the slavery with the prison workforce. But instead, you have to convince people that they're free while they're still fulfilling and flowing down that same stream. They don't know that they're all in the same stream, but they are. And what they're doing is they're making money for the same people. All of their
Yeah.
life force and all of their energy is going to the same people, unless they have a small business. Unless they have a small business and they're creating opportunities and services and value to their community, that's completely different, right? We're talking about two different things. But in kind of corporate capitalism, where we are now getting to the point where corporate mega conglomerates have a monopoly over everything, where this candidate talks all the time about the biggest corporations that are kind of taking over everything.
We're
Fascism
back
to me,
100 years ago. This is exactly what people talked about 100 years ago. They talked about the trust, and Teddy Roosevelt, all the progressives talk about this stuff constantly, don't even realize these progressives are the most big government people we got. They're the most authoritarian people we have. They're not freedom loving. Freedom loving means you tolerate other people, you leave them alone. That is not a progressive. I don't know who's paying attention. Nazis are authoritarian, so are commies. All right. And I do think there's a distinction there still between left and right that's being lost. So I don't try to lump it all together. Um, Communism and fascism will look about the same to the average middle class person. So that's us. They ain't going to look the same to Bill Gates. All right.
right.
Bill Gates knows the difference between communism, which will steal his wealth, and he will not be in charge anymore, and a fascist system where, frankly, the rich people are running the show. But in theory, that is
If
not
you
what the
can play the
socialists are
game,
after.
you win.
Yeah, and you do
Yeah.
have, yeah, and somebody's going to run almost every society. So that, and it generally tends to be a small group of people. So yeah, I will grant something like that. But the amount of power that the government has and the amount of wealth inequality that they allow in the society is not fixed. And the United States was founded by, other than slavery, which is the clear exception to our system, and it's okay, is it fascist? Well, it's private property. So yeah, you'd have to, if you had to push it somewhere, but it was a small government kind of inequality. So it may fit as well in the upper right, okay? Which is weird. And it's racist, okay? Clearly racist because the only slaves are blacks. And they're viewed as subhumans. If you read, even, I won't get into that too much, but the key point, and even Alexis de Tocqueville notices this in Democracy in America, and he is struck by the equality that he sees in the United States. That is his first observation of America, is how equal it was. But where is he going? He's going in the Ohio River Valley. I don't think he made it up to Minnesota, but he's definitely seeing America along that Ohio Valley and in New England and New York, and it's small farmers everywhere. Everybody's about the same. There isn't a massive concentration of wealth yet. In fact, the most concentrated wealth you'd say was on the southern plantations. That's where you had the worst inequality in the country, because what you have in the South is a few very wealthy plantation owners. Jefferson and Washington are one of them, okay? And these guys, Washington was one of the richest men in America at the time. And what his main capital is, he owned slaves. But you don't see that in the rest of the country until the Industrial Revolution comes along, and you get factories in the north, and you get railroads.
So I would love to highlight a couple of things that you said in there because I thought they were really great. So the small farms, the reason that there was not a lot of inequality in the local communities where there's a lot of small farms is because everybody relied on themselves or their neighbors if they needed something. But for the most part, everybody was producing their own food and they were taking care of themselves. There was a lot of ownership and self accountability with how those people were living. And so in those kind of circumstances, it's just kind of whoever is the best at it lives the best life. And I think that is freedom, you
Well, it's
know?
near it based on the economies at the means of production is what Marx would have called it. I don't necessarily want to use that term, but based on how you could farm, you got to use a horse, you got to use a plow. You don't get a big corporate farm because there's no capital investment. There's not tractors, there's not combines. There's a limit to how much one family can farm. That's it. You're going to get 40 acres, 300 acres. I don't know. I don't know the limit. I never farmed. But I know if you had to do it with your own two hands and your family, you can only get so big, and that's it. And frankly, now you could still, somebody could try and build a really big farm and then hire out laborers to work it. But why would the laborers do that? Why don't they just go and get their own land and farm it themselves? They'd make more money than working for somebody else. So the whole system, the frontier, if you will, and the logic and the economics of the frontier forced America to be equal. You can't get you can't get it really big until you get industrialism, and then yeah, you get a factory. There's a factory owner. He get making a lot more money than the factory workers, and that thing just tends to grow and grow and grow. Walmart is bigger
It's
than the
power.
Chinese army. Oh yeah, there's power in it. There's
It's
economic
money
power.
and power.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the power means that factory owner gets to say whatever he wants and gets to have if there's limited jobs. So just a little recap for anybody that needs to be reminded. If there are limited jobs and there are people that are unemployed and there's competition for those jobs, then the employers can set whatever terms they want for those jobs, especially if those people cannot go and find food any other way. This is very
Um,
important to understand.
if they had a true monopoly, yeah. If there's only one person you could work for, then and that took a while. Railroads were actually fairly competitive. Car companies more competitive. There's we have far fewer now, and we've had a consolidation of industry. All
Well,
right, so if there's no
I think Trump has been very successful campaigning with the Midwest and the mining communities because there is only one employer there, or the small communities that only
sure,
have a Walmart, and that's the biggest the Walmart and the school district, only employers in town. It's
yes,
there's almost two conversations to be had in the country: is what's going on with the cities and what's going on with everybody else.
to
And that's always
realize is that your ideal situation is going to be a competitive free market with a large number of companies, okay, large number of businesses, and that's where you're trying to get to. The Industrial Revolution does create economies of scale that lead so that it's cheaper to get big than it is to get small. And this tends to concentrate the industries. We have to find means to break it up. Some of this stuff, though, are arbitrary monopolies. They are created by governments, they're created by government regulations, arbitrary rules that businesses lobby in Congress to create the monopolies. That if we got rid of the privileges, we don't have to have national banking like this. You can have little banks all over the place. Okay, but we constantly concentrate the industry by rules and regulations as well. Something progressives have a lot of trouble seeing. They naturally think it all goes to monopoly, not necessarily. It can. They don't know enough about economics really to make those
centralization.
statements.
That's the other thing that I wanted to highlight from what you were talking about
Sure,
earlier is
sure.
centralization. And the banks have created a situation where they are exploiting I will retract that word, where they're extracting massive amounts of wealth from the population because of the business structures that and business and finance structures that they've set up in conjunction with the politicians, because there have laws that have needed to be changed for them to be able to pull all this stuff off, because people saw at the turn of the century that this was a problem. This has been an ongoing
Well,
problem.
sure.
The
Yeah.
exploitation and the inequality of wealth has been an ongoing problem of this country, and there's had to be some resets along the way.
Well, and as I wanted to just make the point that America was the exception. Okay, you had inequality of wealth in Europe. That's what helps cause the French Revolution. And well, how is it done? It's done because aristocrats own all the land. They had the titles and stuff. The peasants have virtually nothing, and they have to work the land. There isn't an American model where the peasants can just go out and get their own land and farm themselves. It's the exact same economic laws of farming that exist in America as exist in France. Nobody's farming any different here than they were in Europe, in France, but the ownership is different between who owns the land in America, because it's a lot of people owning small farms, versus how it's done in Europe, and the aristocrat owns it all. It's a medieval structure. Don't always think that it's somehow economics is the enemy. The laws are very often the enemy, the laws of property, and they do need to be looked at and adjusted. But America went from this frontier society, small farmers, Homestead Act mentality, Daniel Boone, Davy Crockett, whatever. the whole model we have of America, the pilgrims and the whole traditions. And industrialism then transformed us. And pretty soon we started getting huge concentrations of wealth. And Carnegie's worth $1 billion, and he owns the factory, and they don't know how to solve that problem. The truth is, we are still struggling to get back that original system of America that was very equal and very free at the same time. That is what the upper left model is designed to do. Do not use the solutions that we know have already failed. This is the obvious part. I would always ask progressives, if big government were the solution to this inequality problem, we would have the most equal society on the face of the planet. Our government has never been bigger. Please engage brain at this point and understand your solutions did not work. Now, either you find some other solutions, which is great, that's what I would like to do, or just give up and say, well, forget it, we don't care. We never really did care about the poor in the first place. You really think Hillary Clinton's priority is poor people? No, I don't think it is. Okay. Now, you can believe that if you want, but you're drinking a Kool-Aid. I would always ask the question then of both conservatives and progressives, both of them. If I can shrink this government and help poor people, do you oppose it? Would you oppose something that would actually shrink the government and help the poor far more than the rich? Yes or no? Because I'm moving it upper left, and I want to find out what your Republicans constantly telling me, well, we just want to shrink the government. Fine, I'll shrink it for you. But I'm going to help the poor more than I am your rich buddies. And the Democrats will tell me the same thing. Oh, I just want to help poor people. Fine, we're going to help the poor people. But we're going to shrink the government at the same time. Do you oppose? Just because I shrank government, do you oppose? And you find out what the real priorities are. They say, you can't do that. How do you do that? It's impossible. You can't do it. Sure, I can. Abolish the taxes on the poor and the middle class. That shrinks the government, and it absolutely helps the poor and the middle a lot more than it helps Mitt Romney. Okay? Now, who's complaining about that? Who complains and says, oh, we can't do that? Yeah, the bad guys are complaining. The rest of us need to be saying, yeah, why are we taxing ourselves just so they can give us our money back? It makes no sense whatsoever. Please do that minimally. Try that first. Abolish the taxes, all the taxes on the poor and the middle class. That is hardcore upper left policy. I would love for Kennedy to support an idea like that. And believe me, you would freak out. That's why I want to abolish the sales taxes. They tax the poor more. But take that federal income tax and give people a $100,000 exemption right off the top. Most of us wouldn't even be filing coming this April. All right. That $100,000 exemption means a lot. Would mean a lot to me. I assume it means a lot to you. That would be a nice thing to have. Bill Gates couldn't care less about it. $100,000 is meaningless to him. You technically cut his taxes by the most insanely small amount you could ever cut it. And he's like, wait a second, I'm going to end up paying all the taxes. Yeah, you get it. The rich only
Right.
should pay taxes. Only the rich should pay taxes.
We talked about this before. It's time to discuss the more radical policy changes because I think everybody can feel that if we do not, we are headed for disaster.
Lower right nightmare, yeah.
So actually, President Biden has rolled out some very progressive policies that are just kind of rolling through right now, and there's not really people giving it a second glance. And these are things that progressives have been fighting for years and years. And it's not even making a drop in the bucket now. And I think that's what we are going to continue to see is these policies that have been held in negotiation for a very long time. They're no longer going to hold their political weight. And we are going to need, because it's like something's on fire and you're spitting on it, trying to put it out. And so we are going to need to evaluate and consider seriously more than the interest of business and corporate capitalism has allowed us to take it. We have to take these very seriously
How many
because it's now
people
the
have
time.
you ever heard in your lifetime ever advocate abolishing the taxes on the poor and the middle class? How many people can you name? that have given you that idea?
Not very many people in Texas, which is
Minnesota?
strange because
How
they would
many
be the ones
Democrats
that
have
would
ever
benefit
advocated
from
that?
it.
How many Republicans
Okay,
have
right.
ever advocated that?
Lots of them. Lots of them. The people in Texas know, and that's what's so fascinating, and that's what the brainwashing and the cult come in here, because they believe that they should continue the system that they've been in, or they should go back to the system that they were in, and they are grinded down. They're tired. Most of them, I don't want to speak for all of them, but I lived a lot around Texas, and a lot of them are very miserable unless they were able to establish themselves in the 80s. If people have, and if they are landowners or if they are small business owners in Texas, you're doing great. If you were not able to establish those things, you're really struggling. And yet they still are voting against their best interests. And when I say voting against their best interests, they still do not see that inequality is a problem, even though they are significantly unequal. So there's not only political and business interests fighting against this, there's also people who have been taught a false reality or something
Actually,
that
I just think
convinces
people have never even been provided upper left solutions. 1776, okay, in February, he publishes two editions. But Pain Begins Common Sense, first few paragraphs, and says, a long habit of not thinking something wrong gives it a superficial appearance of being right and raises at first an outcry in defense of custom. I have experienced that again and again. People don't know what the word upper left means. That's a new term. I fully grant that. But I'm telling them they are trapped in the wrong political model. They keep playing this as if it's only left or right or only donkey elephant. That's really what it comes down to. What party are you, etc. Don't even realize that half the people you think you hate are in your own party. You just are blind to it. You don't see that because the party loyalty is strong, very strong. And they're not going to ever,
I've
they
been
ain't ever
attacked
going to,
recently for my support
oh,
of the
yeah.
party.
Well, you were a Democrat in Texas, right? So you're going to, I mean, you don't exist. Because that state is, I know the feeling because I'm in Missouri and it's Republican. I crossed the river into Illinois. Republicans don't exist. Democrats are running that state completely. And they both seem to end up in the same tight direction. I grant you that the parties do disagree strongly on issues like abortion. There are a few issues, guns perhaps. There's a few issues where the parties disagree substantially. And that helps keep the average person divided. The average people that are would benefit from an upper left strategy. You can divide them on these other issues. Race was like that in American history for a long time. There's a lot of racial bigotry out there, particularly in the whites, all right? And they're not going to pick certain solutions. And it would have been the natural coalition should have been between working class, lower middle class whites and slaves in the South. All right. They are both actually suffering under a very unequal system that benefits mostly plantation owners. All right. But you can't bring those two together because of the racial hatred. And you have to overcome that first. If you keep seeing things in those terms of race, and I might agree Grant sex was part of it too in some ways. If I'm giving advice to people, what's the most important quality you want in a political leader? You want honesty.
Right.
Washington is actually the model still. He was a very honest man by all accounts. His word was his bond. That's even more important than smarts. All right. And there have been smarter ones, but very few as honest. And the more honest you don't want somebody who's going to lie to your face. In fact, we should be flunking those people. One of the strongest arguments that I use why this country needs a new political party. We can get into that too. But the fact is the system is corrupt. Every single elected official in this country takes an oath to support the Constitution of the United States. They have all broken that oath. Every single one of them has violated that
The
oath.
Constitution, aka the people. The Constitution is a document that is supposed to be the people or their constituents. They're supposed to there's a social contract here where they're supposed to protect
It's
us.
well,
Like
if it
there's
was just about the people, we wouldn't need a constitution. It's a written document. It has meaning. When it says, no state shall make anything but gold and silver coin a tender in payment of debt, that means something. It meant something to the founder. It means no paper money. Now, I know that's antiquated, but that's what's in the document. So we
But
are
it's supposed to be
violating
on
it.
behalf. It's supposed to be on behalf of the
But
people or in
that's,
the best
well,
interest of the
and the
people.
way to change it, if you don't like what's in the Constitution, you don't like what's in there, that's fine. You got a right not to like it. You still got to follow it if you take an oath to it, and then change it. It has to be changed honestly. We
They
have
aren't following
abandoned.
it.
What do
They're
you think
not
the
following it.
problem with
Okay.
Roe v. Wade was? Well, I got nothing to do with abortion. Roe v. Wade had nothing to do with the Constitution. It was just judges cheating it. That's what it was. There is nothing about abortion in the Constitution. So what does that mean? It means the states decide. Supreme Court put us back on the Constitution once. We're breaking it everywhere else, but one time they did it, and you see the outrage. You see, oh, how dare they put us back? Most people that are talking about this, if I say to them, I will give you $100 right now if you can find abortion in the Constitution of the United States, I might as well make it $1 million because it ain't in there. Did you even bother to
Here's a radical
come
idea
on?
for you. Here's a
Come
radical
on.
idea for you. What if so I know people in Texas that are adamant about no abortion.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah,
Okay.
they're out there.
I respect that. I am very pro abortion.
That's
I
fine.
support it. I'm all however, I respect other people's views and I expect and this is a very
Sure.
I it's an identity issue. It's often a religious issue, but it's kind of it's something that is very personal to a person, okay? So therefore, you should be able to live how you want to. And so you should be able to live by people that you agree with. And I'm not talking you should be separate from others. I'm just saying maybe people should live in states
Right. That share your views. Sure.
according to their views.
Well, is that not
That,
what the
that that is a
Constitution
radical idea
says?
because in a literal sense, you're going to have to move. And most people can't afford to move. Most people can't afford to uproot. And if they have some shambles of a support system, you don't want people to lose those support systems, right? So there would be if there was like a mass shuffling of the country, bad idea.
So the cut to the chase question is Roe v. Wade a legitimate decision or not?
I've read Roe versus Wade,
Yeah, me too.
and I understand how they logically pulled it off. Is it still grounded in our Constitution? I don't know. I
It was
probably
never
not.
there in the
No,
first
probably
place.
not. However, do I believe that all women everywhere should be able to get an abortion if they need it? Absolutely.
Different
So that's where
question.
I'm at.
That's
That's
a
where I'm at.
different
And I would
question.
vote for that. And I would elect
Would you
officials
cheat the
that are going to
Constitution
support
to
that.
get your way? Missouri is extremely radical on this issue, and it's frankly going to hurt the Republican Party in the long run. Which is the irony of some of this is that when the court made the right decision, and it was the right decision, and I'm not going to be able to deal with people for too long that are okay cheating that document. We've been cheating it for too long. I would fully grant that Roe is not the only breakage. We've got worse breakages out there even than Roe, frankly. And the court just fixed this one. But the tendency in the American people to cheat this document is alarming. And we have got to get back on this honesty policy. Read it. You tell me what it means. You tell me where you find abortion in it. Fine. We have a reasonable argument. But we don't have a reasonable argument if you can sit there and admit, well, I know it's not in there, but I'm okay with it because I like open abortion.
If this sets the standard moving forward that we would not manipulate things in order to get our way
Yeah.
in general, I think that's a good standard. However,
Yeah.
every woman should have abortion rights if they choose. Just a disclaimer. I just would like to make that very clear. However, if this sets a standard of where they will start throwing things out if it's not constitutional, great. I have not seen evidence of that.
Republicans
So
themselves violated it within a few months because technically they then tried to pass a national abortion ban. That is blatantly unconstitutional as well. So neither
Absolutely
I am
unconstitutional.
not defending either party.
Ridiculous.
They both break this stuff routinely. Okay, and we
Yeah.
have got to get the American people. The founders were apparently naive, as smart as they were, and they're smarter than most politicians we've got.
They couldn't have seen this coming. They couldn't have seen this
They
coming.
didn't see it coming. No, I agree, and they really naively thought that the American people would understand their Constitution. It's only 12 pages long, and that they would enforce it at the polls if politicians violated it. And they did that
Simple.
for.
It was simple.
Oh yeah,
It's
sure.
a
They kept
short
it simple.
document, and that's what it's intended to be. Short, simple, easy for people to understand. Absolutely.
That's the only. If we can't have a constitution like that, then we shouldn't have one at all. Just get rid of it. Because if you don't have a
Agreed.
constitution that the average American can understand and enforce at elections if need be, and we can't have honest debates like this as to what's in the document itself. I'm passionate about following that constitution and not cheating it. And we are cheating it a lot. I gave you another example. The Constitution clearly limits how big the federal government can be. It lists the things that the federal government can do. We are
Right.
way off that. We are way off that, people. There's no Department of Education. There's no Social Security. 90% of what this federal government does, founders didn't even really want us to just go making war without Congress declaring it. So they put that in there too. You have to understand. It says only it doesn't say only. It gives Congress the power to declare war. The implication is they're the only ones that can do it. So we don't even think twice about this. The president could go bomb Iran tomorrow. Nobody would say, "Oh, that's unconstitutional. What are you doing?" We have no declaration of war against Iran, but he can do it. And we bomb
Hmm.
Syria, we bomb all over the place, and we don't treat that with the seriousness that we should. It's an impeachable act, frankly, but
Things have gotten very out of hand.